and welcome to Conversations Worth Your While, a show in which I chat with really cool people about interesting topics to spark and inspire and motivate personal and professional change. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by Tina Larsson. And it's fascinating. Our topic today is really about how to get from everything's an emergency to calm, organized proactivity. Proactivity. And it's fascinating because I'm a life coach and Tina is a co-op and condo expert. And you're probably thinking, what do they have in common? Well, this conversation is worth your while if you would love to get out of that emergency mode, out of that reactivity mode, and into this proactive, peaceful, very organized, ahead of the game mode, which I think can benefit everyone. So, hi, Tina.
Hey, Linda.
How
Thank
are
you
you
so much for
today?
having. I'm great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very
I'm
welcome. You're very
I'm looking
welcome.
forward to this.
Yes, me too. Me too. So why don't you just quickly tell me, like, kind of what you do and who you serve, and why this topic is worth your while to speak with me about?
Okay, so I'm Tina Larsson. My company is the Folson Group. I'm the co-founder and owner. We're based in New York City, and we work with co-op and condo boards to cut their expenses and also the expenses of their capital projects. Think of us as the McKinsey company for residential homeowners associations. But McKinsey and Company, the difference is McKinsey and Company, they go into huge corporations that charge millions of dollars to consult them on how to increase their profit margin. We work on a contingency, so we share our client savings. But bottom line is that we want them to run more efficiently. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, it takes a little bit of coaching.
Yes, good business consultants are also coaches in many ways. Absolutely. So it's interesting. You were mentioning when we were talking earlier about some of the difficulties that that they're volunteer positions, people that are on co-ops and condo boards. And I just want to share really quickly. So I moved into a patio home community in June. Um, about a month later, we had the annual homeowners association meeting, and I had a glass of wine. I had some hors d'oeuvres. The next thing I know, someone nominates me to be the vice president of the HOA, and then I second the motion, I third the motion, whatever, and before I know, it's unanimous. Linda is now the new vice president, and I'm like, what does that mean? What do I have to do? And they're like, oh, don't worry, you don't really have to do anything. That's what they said to me, right? So I don't really know what my responsibilities are, and when I'll probably find out when there's an emergency. So there's a big
Yes.
issue.
Yes, that's exactly what you're going to find out. That's my guess too. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it is. I mean, in business, you have a job description for the employees. You have a job description for everything that you outsource. And in most cases, or in many cases, you have a job description for some kind of responsibility of the board members or the advisors. In a co-op and condo board, if there's a job description for the super, you're in luck. So so it's not run like a business, and it becomes either overwhelming, or in the case where you're told not to do anything, then it becomes that you only operate in an emergency mode, right?
Right. And you know what else? I know my mom was on the board of her condo association in Florida, and
Yeah.
after just one term, she's like, I've had it. I can't. I think because things were kind of like up in the air and nobody knew who was supposed to really be doing what, there was a lot of egos and a lot of not my responsibilities and a lot of power struggles. And she was just really trying to do her best for the 170 doors that were in her section, and she hated it.
Oh, she
So,
did.
yeah, and I think it has to do a lot with Well, first of all, you want to do what's best for your community, right? That is
Yes.
the ultimate goal. That's why there is a board. It's to handle all the things for the community, right? Um, but people are inexperienced. Many people have never been on a board before. They don't know about property management. They're disorganized. I know, maybe there's a property manager, but that's not the same as running an organization, a business, the board, so say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no. So the difference is that so the board is really there to make the decision on the behalf. It's like politics. It's like a government that
Mm,
they're the ones who are supposed to govern, and then they hire, or maybe it's already in place, a property manager who is supposed to run the day-to-day operation, and they do that to some capacity. But one of the problems is that we see is that it's a third party person, and that person might have a big staff behind them, but that person has 8 buildings. So think about it. If you're running one organization, and very often a homeowners association comes, even if it's very small, and like in your HOA, it's a very small organization, it still takes the same amount of services. It's very complex, because it's not only to run that. You have the governments, you have different codes, you have fire codes and water boards, and you have all kinds of so it just becomes a very complicated organization. So think about it. If you are on a board of one business that's run like a business, they tell you what you have to do and how it's done and all of this, and you're probably selected because it's your expertise. In this case, that you're serving because they convinced you,
mm-hmm.
and so you don't really have it in you to do the best. And then it's very complex, and there's no documentation saying what is what and when things are due and what's
Right.
next. What happens if there's a leak? What do we do? There's no documentation saying these are the procedures.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't blame your mom at all. We hear it all the time. People, they volunteer and then they're like, yeah, no, I couldn't take it anymore, so then they
Right.
stop.
And it
Yeah.
is a volunteer position, and our priorities as humans are ourselves, our own work that we do, our families, so that sometimes when something's got to give, it might be what you're supposed to be doing on the board, especially if it's disorganized and you're feeling overwhelmed. And so, we our little topic today, how to get from everything's an emergency mode, right, to like calm, organized proactivity. So from being reactive to being proactive. So there's a lot of costs of reactive mode, whether if you're a person who's got a responsibility of a board, or even if you just have the responsibility of your own family, your children, right? This reactive, trying to catch up all the time, puts a lot of stress on our minds, a lot of stress on our relationships, a lot of stress on us, so that we can't even perform at peak performance in the things that are important to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you notice that are the costs of reactive mode when it comes to board members and the community of a condo or a co op?
Yeah. So whenever there's a change in law, when there's a deadline, so a couple of years ago, they had all buildings in New York City, they had to install something called a door lock monitor. And it had to be installed, and they gave them like 10 years warning. And then they had to do this during these 10 years, and it was due, I believe, January 1st, 2020, so 2 years ago. And what happened was that we sent out articles to all of our clients and our prospect clients and everybody in our database. And we said, it's 2 years until the deadline, so we should start looking at it now. The fourth quarter, just because before they had to do this, all the elevator service companies, that installed double in price in that quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 years before, It was half the price, and then we tried to speak with them, and they were not interested. And they went like, "Yeah, it's not until 2020." And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the summer, half a year before, they all needed this done, and it became very, very expensive for them. And not only that, I mean, also you can risk fines for not adhering to various building codes, fire codes, etc.
Sure.
So the association might get fined because they didn't do things in time. Uh, Also, then maybe you're panicking. You said, "Oh, just call the attorney." And as you know, attorneys charge several $100s per hour for advising boards. So there's that fee. There might be late fees if things are not paid in time, which we see frequently. Yeah, so there's a lot of cost associated with being reactive as opposed to
Right.
being
Yeah.
proactive, like a business owner, like a successful business owner. They operate they said, okay, so what are we doing next year? What are we doing 3 years from now? What are we doing 5 years from now?
Right. Yeah.
And
So there's the cost of waiting. And in my business as a life coach, the cost of waiting is really the quality of
yes,
relationships, the putting off of your dreams, the settling for the same, like what happens to your dreams if you never make a change and you always just settle, right? And the resentment that builds in relationships when you don't improve them, do what you can to improve them, which is actually fascinating that you can improve a relationship without the other person even having to do a thing or knowing that you're doing it. Like, woo, really? That's true. Swear to God, that's true. So there's a big cost to waiting.
yeah.
And in my business, there's a cost to your soul. There's a cost to your genuine happiness. And there's the cost to the example that you set for your kids and your family members and the other people in your life. Like, oh, just settle, just wait, just, I mean, it's really a cost to them because that's the example you're setting. You're leading by example all the time, whether you believe you are or know you are or not. You always are. So what is the legacy that you want to leave to your children? That you want to leave to the people that you care about, that you want to show your friends, listen, if I went out on a limb and I did what was best and what was right for me, you can do this too. That inspiration and motivation that you can share and gift to other people when you don't wait so long and stay, in status quo, because everybody is holding back in some way. Everybody. So there's definitely cost. The longer you wait, the more costly it is.
And if you don't operate on a proactive mode, then it's panic, it's stress, it's not peace of mind. I mean, you want peace of mind. You want to know, okay, so how are we doing this, and how are we going to get from A to Z in 3 years, in 5 years?
Right.
You want to play. I mean, it's just
Yeah, it's like personal goal setting's the exact same way.
yes,
Right. So, for as a person, you might say, okay, I'm not entirely happy with the work that I'm doing in this world. And so I want to get a different job and do something different, but I don't know what it is. And so instead of just waiting till I'm fed up and quitting and go, what next? What now? I'm going to make a plan to discover what it is that is I call it find your wow that I do with my clients.
yes.
What's your wow, right? How do we map a plan and a path to it? How do we discover your strengths so that your wow, you're not going to dismiss it right away? Like, well, I'd love to do that, but I'm not qualified. Like, how we can discover exactly how you're qualified, right? So there's so much to be making that pathway forward. I have a session that I give to people that is really, like, I call it, and for people who are young they won't get it, but a triptych. The triptych for the AAA used to give you was like page by page. Now go here and turn the page, now drive here, turn the page. So it's really like, where do we want to go and how do we get there? And then you map it out in a way that feels like you have time. It's easy time wise to say, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and there's never going to be a rush because we're always just staying on the path, on the process. So I love that you said that boards need to run like a business, and that's what businesses do. They are forward looking. They're not saying, oh, how do we catch up? A good business says, how am I going to create demand for my product 5 years from now? What's going to go away and people aren't going to be interested in anymore. Like, I don't think people are going to buy abacuses anymore because, like, and guess what? They're not even buying calculators anymore unless they're college students because everyone's got it on their phone. What can I do differently now as an electronics company? What can I do differently? How can I find, change my business or meet a protocol that's going to be happening down the road with peace and in a nice pace that is not overwhelm. And how can I do that when I don't have the expertise to even know how to do that?
Yeah.
So what do
Yeah.
they do?
They call us. I mean, yeah. I mean, a lot of our business, even though the way that we make money is by reducing their expenses.
I love
The
that.
way
I'd pay you to reduce my expenses.
the way that we get that done is that we do a lot of coaching. I mean, we have a lot of phone calls. We have to explain, and the board can be complex. I mean, we have the smallest board that we have right now. They have 4 individuals, and they're pretty much on board to move forward. So they're a very proactive board. But the largest one that we have, I mean, it's 8 people. That's a big organization. I mean, that's like a community board. I mean, it's like a community board. I mean, that's a lot of wants and wishes and inactivity and making decisions. And then if there are a lot of lawyers, then nothing gets done. They are not all of
Averse.
them, of course. They are risk averse, and it's always more difficult for us if there's more than one attorney. If there's one attorney, that's fine, but if there are many attorneys, it's normally more difficult to get things done,
Interesting.
which we
Yeah.
find interesting, very
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, many humans are naturally risk averse.
True.
And because it's really the fear of the unknown. They're making an assumption that the risk is not going to pay off instead of making the assumption that it is going to pay off. So, right then and there, it stops them from really thinking through the positives. They only think through what could go wrong. That's what they're focused on. What could go wrong? We can't do this because what if this and what if that, if what if this? And I love doing, well, you probably know the what if up exercise, right?
Yes, that's a good one.
Isn't that a good one? What if you did this thing to solve your problem? What if you did that thing? All these positive, focused, solution based ideas, right? I think that would actually kind of be a really fun exercise to take a board through. So there's no naysayers allowed because it's really like, ooh, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we did this? It's positive, solution based ideas.
And that's what we try to bring to them.
Yeah.
We haven't tried a what if, but maybe we should.
It's kind of a fun exercise because
Yes,
it
it
really
is.
gets the ideas flowing. Although I bet you the attorneys might not want to, might be like, yeah, well, but we've been conditioned to what if down, what if this other thing goes wrong? Because we have to make sure we plan around it or plan for it, which is their job. I absolutely understand that.
Yeah, but some of the measurements that we do could be as easy as we had one building, they had 20 phone lines. So we went through their phone lines and we canceled 12 of them because they were never used.
Right.
So they were paying for them, but they were not used.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty simple. So when it comes to restoring facades or elevator this way or that way, I can see how they could be a little risk averse. When it comes to simple measurements like canceling 12 phone line, what's the worst thing that can happen? You call up Verizon and you order more phone lines. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe not everything's quite as risky as we think, as
Yeah.
people think that it is. Yeah, very
Very
fascinating.
true. Very true.
Yeah. So the benefits of being proactive is you never really, it's the opposites of being reactive, right? The benefits that you're reducing overwhelm. So therefore you're probably increasing your effectiveness. You are reducing your costs. You are increasing your peace of mind. You have less stress because you have a better, easier pace and a plan. And in your case, it's better for the community. In my case, it's better for the individuals and all the people around the individuals, all those relationships and your effectiveness and efficiency at work, whatever work that you do. When you reduce overwhelm, you can keep all those balls in the air with much more finesse. As a matter of fact, you actually there's not as many balls as you think. So you've reduced the balls, like you're saying. Like, well, we don't have to deal with so many things. When you can be efficient, you deal with less things and you deal with them more proactively and at a nice, easy pace. It just makes life easier. And so I love when we have these conversations worth your while and we find something that seems like we have nothing in common with our work and what we do, but we find that there's parallels all over the place in the business world to what I do with humans on an individual basis, because it's humans that are running the business world. So when you have inner peace and less stress and less balls in the air and less overwhelm, and more clarity and a pathway and a goal, and you're excited to move forward and you're proactively living your life, then when you show up on your board of directors or at your job, then you show up a different person. You're your best self for those people around you.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, most people, whether they need your services or they need my services, in most cases, when they go to work and they perform their work, they do all of that as
Yes.
part of their job, right?
Yes.
So in your case, it's on their personal level that it might not, and in my case, it's their board volunteer position that they don't. So it's
Right.
kind of interesting. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Okay. So, Tina, thank you so much for being on Conversations Worth Your While. Do you have anything that you'd like to share with our audience, or a tool or something that you can give them, or a way to contact you?
Yes, so my contact info, well, we have a website. It's www.thefolsongroup.com. That's THEFOLSON group.com. If you're on the board or live in a building that has a board, so you might be able to introduce me, that would be great. And we also have some free tools on our website. And I bet that Linda is going to share the links to those. I'm going to share them with her. And we have 3 different tools that will help you organize to get your building or your board to operate in a proactive mode.
Right, beautiful, which will save you money as a homeowner. So, yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Tina. And yes, I'll definitely put Tina's gifts and contact information into the description, so you'll be able to get to that. So, I'm Linda Bucher, and my gift is synthesizing wisdom and knowledge and making a soul connection with my clients. And I love helping people to get clear, to lighten their load, to nurture their passions, and unleash their gifts on the world. And if you're watching this, please open to the description where you'll find out how to contact us and the free tools and the resources that we're gifting you. And once again, I want to thank you, Tina Larsson. Thank you, my audience. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. And until next time, make sure you've made this conversation worth your while by fueling the spark that it ignited. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.